OpenAI is literally changing our lives right in front of our eyes. It is moving at the speed of our decisions. At the forefront of this evolution is Infused Innovations, and today they are sharing their insights, experience, and real customer use cases that are reshaping the industries they are working in.
Welcome, and thank you all for joining us today for OpenAI Unleashed, empowering organizational productivity and industry transformation. This is presented by Infused Innovations. My name is Lauren Damon, and we're thrilled to have you here today to talk about the topic at the forefront of everyone's mind, ChatGPT and OpenAI. Since their founding in 2012, Infused Innovations has delivered holistic solutions to businesses, delivering scalable, stable enterprise-grade technologies, cloud-native delivery models, and innovative solutions, all aligned to a zero-trust posture and wrapped in strategic advisory and guidance to help businesses differentiate themselves from their competitors. Most relevant today, and for the last 4 years, Infused Innovations has been at the bleeding edge of OpenAI, building specific case studies across a multitude of industries. And we're ready to share them with you today. Looking at our agenda and presenters today, we are going to address, of course, OpenAI has been around for quite some time now, and we're going to talk about how it got where it is today. And the amount of information that's available for leaders of companies and enterprises to consume is simply overwhelming. Knowing who to trust and, more importantly, what information to trust is paramount in potentially the difference between hitting a grand slam and going back to the minors. Fortunately, today, Infused Innovations is in a position to share the successes of clients they've worked with that are reaping the benefits of early adoption. The ease of adoption and the simplicity of programs installed will give you actionable takeaways and allow you to see results applied to your business. Not only will we tell you about the companies that have adopted AI, but our solutions engineer is going to peel back the curtain and show you live demonstrations you can begin using right away. During this webinar, we hope you'll share your questions. We're going to put our experts to the test at the end of the presentation. So please feel free to submit your questions via the Q&A feature and stick around for our experts to address them. I'd like to welcome our presenters on today's topic. Alex Clayton is a multifaceted solutions engineer at Infused Innovations, serving as a vital cross-team conduit. Driven by a passion for process improvement and automation, he also boasts a wide-ranging skill set across multiple IT specialties. Known for his innovative approach to problem solving, Alex's continuous endeavors towards efficiency have invariably propelled team performance and client satisfaction. Once an AI skeptic, Alex now intricately weaves AI technologies like ChatGPT into his daily professional and personal routines. Having experienced the transformative power of AI firsthand, he eagerly anticipates sharing his AI insights with you today. Jeff Wilhelm is the founder and CEO of Infused Innovations, a consulting firm focused on helping organizations scale effectively through the deployment of secure technical solutions and embrace new and emerging technologies. He has nearly 25 years experience in both corporate and consulting roles across industries and has worked with global teams to deliver complex projects with a focus on cloud, security, and data. Though Infused Innovation serves customers across the United States, Jeff is active in Rhode Island startup community as a member of the board of advisors for the Launch Lab at URI, an RI Hub VMS mentor, a board member in companies at varying stages of growth, on the board of trustees at a local educational institution, as well as a judge in other pitch, hackathon, and business competitions. Jeff was named one of Rhode Island's 40 Under 40 in 2018, received a C-Suite award from Providence Business News in 2017, and was recognized by the RI Tech Collective as a Tech 10 award winner in 2014. Over the past 25 years, Phil Magniszewski has worked with hundreds of clients from startups to members of the Global 1000, helping them explore and implement leading technologies. In his current role as the Chief Innovation Officer and head of the Innovation Lab at Infused Innovations, Phil leans even further into his passion for exploring emerging technologies and driving disruptive innovation. Phil is a renowned expert in the areas of strategic planning, applied AI, cloud computing, and platform development. In addition to being a graduate of SUNY Buffalo, he holds a certification from MIT Professional Education Digital Programs and possesses a strong track record of identifying, developing, and launching new products, services, and business models. As a thought leader and evangelist for disruptive innovation, Phil's expertise fuels growth opportunities and fosters an ecosystem of resources that he brings to bear for organizations looking to challenge the status quo. Phil, welcome. Thanks for sharing your insight and expertise with us today.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. And thanks for everyone who's taking time out of, I'm sure, their very busy days to join us here as well. We have a lot to kind of go through, and we obviously want to get to the meat and potatoes. I think Alex is really excited to share some of the demo work that he's been doing over the past few months with the group here as well. Part of the reason and rationale for us kind of pulling us together is, we spend, a number of hours every week working with both clients and other organizations who are trying to understand what all of this means. They're trying to rationalize, where OpenAI fits and large language models kind of fits into the AI portfolio, but more importantly, kind of where things fit into their strategic plans. Back in December 2022, I think we'll look probably a year from now or even beyond, we'll look at it as kind of a tipping point, a point of change in the area of AI. When OpenAI kind of unleashed ChatGPT onto the world, it was really kind of some of the first consumerization of AI that we've kind of seen in the industry, and it was kind of let loose in the wild. So it had historically been kind of in the realm of data scientists and mathematicians and organizations that had the wherewithal to kind of explore AI models and what it could bring to bear for their businesses. I think that one of the things that we've learned, and we've been working with OpenAI back in the early GPT days for over a year now, so we've had some insight into kind of what was coming and what could be done with the technology as well. But I don't think it's too fine a point to say that it's probably one of the most transformative technologies we've seen in a very, very long time. And what I mean by that is that it is probably going to impact almost every organization and every worker to some extent. I'm going to read here. There's a quote, not a quote, but a stat from PwC research that by 2030, it's going to be a $15.7 trillion impact in the global economy. So my point to some of the folks who may be hearing some of this for the first time is that people have been working and exploring this technology for a little while now. It's not just a time to test the waters. There are organizations that are looking to scale this into real development. Responsible AI, and you hear us touch on this in a number of different pieces of the presentation, is an incredibly important component of your development plan around this technology, and we'll talk some more about that as well. And that the organizational cultures out there, the businesses that can find a way to really internalize this and get their culture and their team on board, are going to be the ones that really kind of excel in this space. So I kind of want to put that out there as a preamble to kind of set the stage for this as well. The challenges that business organizations are dealing with right now, we talked to everyone from CEOs to folks who are running dev groups and data scientists, is understanding what it is, what it can do, what the limitations are, right? And then identifying what are the specific use cases that I can start looking at today that are going to have impact in my organization. From that, effectively understanding, okay, where might I integrate some of these things into my products, into my processes and workflows. And I think most importantly, and we'll talk about this as well, a common question or concern is, people are worried about it's going to displace me in the workforce. So how do you bring the technology into an organization in a way that doesn't, that can help maybe amplify or enhance people's productivity and not necessarily kind of disrupt them or remove them for the organization. And then the ethical implications, I can't overstate the importance of this. I think anyone who's been following this space for a while is now seeing some of the hearings that are happening down in Washington, D.C. now around this, and it's an evolving landscape. And our stance on it is that looking through the lens of responsible AI and some of the principles we'll talk about during the presentation here today, you're kind of putting yourself ahead of the curve on this and making sure that we're using this incredibly powerful technology in the right ways.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of questions and concerns there. What are kind of the most common or the top three?
Yeah, there are three that are almost on every single call we have with business leaders. I'll go back to I'll do the second point first. And there are employees that are going to be worried that AI is going to take away their job, and that's a real concern. That's a real fear. We're not going to discount that. So the organization has to find a way to get their culture kind of up to speed and embracing what AI is able to bring to the table in a way that people are comfortable with. The other ones are very very common as well. Can I trust what I'm getting back? When the technology was first launched back in December by OpenAI, it flat out said that you're going to get some responses that are generated that are complete lies. So we call those hallucinations now. Are there ways that we can use the models in a way that are going to give us results that we know are factual, or ways that we can check that? And there are absolutely, just so we're clear, there are ways to do that. We'll talk a little bit about the Azure ecosystem and what Microsoft brings to the table with this around that particular piece as well. And then, is my data secure? There have been a lot of folks we talked to that have been using OpenAI directly, either the free version or the paid for version as well. But there's concerns about data sovereignty, right? In terms of, who has my data? How do I know it's secure? How do I know it's not being shared elsewhere? That's both with OpenAI and with Bard, and there's a number of other ones out there too, as well as third-party applications that are using some of these technologies as well. So I'm putting these out here so people can understand that these are common questions. And as we go through today, we'll talk about ways to kind of to remedy some of these concerns. So the history of AI is, it didn't just start with ChatGPT. For most on the call, I'm sure most of you guys are aware of that. It's been a discipline. It's been an area of study for over 60 years. I think one of the first conferences for AI was held up in Dartmouth, New Hampshire, back in 1956. Was kind of the first, let's say, group that got together to really talk about the field and what it meant and what developments were going to be important in that. I won't go through the entire history, but I think one of the things I want to talk about is that we're talking about large language models and generative AI and OpenAI, and I'm kind of using those terms interchangeably right now. But there are whole other pieces of the AI portfolio, different disciplines, whether it's computer vision, whether it's OCR technologies, there's predictive analytics at a real high scale that are part of this as well. But what we've seen over the past 10 years is really this acceleration of the accessibility of these technologies. I think historically you had to be a large research university or a large organization to be able to run. And in those cases, there were data centers that were filled with servers and GPUs and incredibly expensive, and you may have needed a small team of data scientists to actually get some results from it. The technologies have gotten easier to use. They're cloud-based. You can, a pay-as-you-go kind of model. You don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure anymore. And in some cases, as you can see with ChatGPT, the models are pre-built, right? And you can take some base models and then kind of enhance and tune and tweak those things to meet your specific needs. So this has been around for a while, but I think the biggest thing we're seeing is just this acceleration of everything right now, which is really quite impressive to see.
So we know the focus of today's discussion is, of course, around AI, but there's several different pieces that all come together in that. Can we touch on the fundamentals and really the foundation of it all?
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. So I'll touch on this a little bit. With so much happening in the realm of AI, I think it's really important to remind everybody that, it's not a magic wand. As much fun as it is to, play with ChatGPT and engineer some prompts, which Alex will show as well. There are absolutely fundamentals that organizations need to do and be thinking about that influence the success or failure of their AI initiatives. And some of those are related to sort of the data-driven decision-making components of that. So I'll start with data. Behind the sort of glitz and glamour of, these LLMs that we've been playing with and these natural language interfaces that we've been playing with, we need to remember that the fundamental building blocks of success are, as with many things, starting with a solid data foundation. It's like constructing a house on sturdy ground. Reliable, accurate, relevant data is what fuels intelligent decision-making. That's true today. It's been true for years, but the products built on top of them take that even to the next level. So for most organizations, that might mean a modern data stack. It might mean that they have to walk away from some of the siloed data and spreadsheets of being sort of primary source material if you want to use, the data that you have in your organization as a differentiator. But with a modern data stack, you can streamline that whole data journey. So collecting, integrating, and transforming data, is much easier. And modernizing that stack is good for businesses regardless, and it allows you to unlock the true potential of AI by working with clean and reliable data. The second one on the list, scalability, right? So scalability and infrastructure, I'll sort of group together a little bit on this one. While AI algorithms themselves are currently in the limelight, infrastructure and scalability, those are sort of the unsung heroes. A scalable infrastructure is sort of, I think, something that deserves a bit of a shout out. And Phil touched on this with the sort of, history of having to buy a lot of CPUs and servers and put them in a data center versus sort of the cloud native approach that can be used as a backbone for heavy lifting today. So to process these large amounts of data efficiently and deliver impactful insights at scale, you obviously need a robust infrastructure. And, as I said, for most organizations, that's going to be cloud native. It's just too expensive to purchase the hardware required to build this out, themselves. But good infrastructure is sort of the engine that powers AI endeavors. And infrastructure is more than just how we deliver great experiences. It's also about making critical decisions as it relates to the tools, the APIs, the integration choices, et cetera. So Phil, I don't know if you can just click one more slide. I had a quick build on this one. I think it's on there. Yeah. So, let's take two products that are basically named the same thing and touch on this one as a quick example. So we know Microsoft has invested $10 billion, I believe it is, in OpenAI. And, you can see OpenAI on the left and Azure OpenAI on the right. And that's basically Microsoft wrapping their sort of security, governance, compliance around this novel technology that they got access to through their investment in OpenAI. So it's the point I'm trying to make is that's incredibly important to understand the differences even between similarly named things. There's probably a new 500 new products and services out there that say AI in their name in the last 6 months. Right. So understanding the differences between them as it relates to, as I said, security, governance, compliance, data, and, that allows for better corporate acceptance and integration into an ecosystem. Security and compliance, I'll touch on really quickly. So, while ChatGPT and Bing Search and Bard and DALL-E and Stable Diffusion, whatever, we could go on and on, while they're all great tools to play with and get real experience and sort of prompt engineering. When we're talking about corporate data and developing new products that will have, your brand on them, or enhancing internal workflows, for example, we obviously need to prioritize security of information and make sure that not only is your corporate data, safe and secure, but that the AI initiatives that we're talking about comply with industry regulations and best practices that may apply to your organization or your vertical, or standards that you find important that are part of your corporate culture. So we want to make sure we're protecting, data, but also gaining the trust of our stakeholders and our clients, right? It's about building upon a strong foundation of security and responsibility, compliance, governance, and ethics. And Phil's going to talk about some of that in a minute. The maintainability bullet here is really important, I think, as well, right? AI models are super cool, but they need care and attention, right? They, there's a secret sauce for long-term success, and it's building a maintainable product, not just putting it out there, setting it, and forgetting it. Continuous monitoring, model retraining, adaptation, they're crucial things that need to be sort of built into the process, sort of the DevOps process and the ongoing care and feeding maintenance process of all of this. We talk to customers about this quite often, but it's nurturing a plant to grow and thrive. It's not just planting it and walking away and checking on it a year later and seeing how it looks. Trust and transparency. I touched on this briefly, but just to sort of drive it home a little bit. I mentioned security and compliance and transparency and governance and some stuff like that before, but this applies not only on the input side, right? The data as a source of truth, transparency related to systems of record, an eye towards bias that might be built into the models. All of those things are important. It also focuses on the output side. So basically saying things around how do we trust the output that we're presenting to customers, and how do we present a direct source that a user can feel they can trust and see the source of that information. Phil touched, I think, a couple minutes ago on hallucinations, and we've all probably heard about this in the media. I like to use the Stephen Colbert word of truthiness, right? Well, this feels accurate, is it? And how do I know? So a lot of the delivery that we do with customers, the prompts that we give back, the responses to prompts that we give back aren't just, a paragraph information, but they actually source, superscript 1, superscript 2, superscript 3. They source where the information is coming from, so a user can feel confident that the responses that we give back are accurate. And a lot of that's built on the Azure OpenAI cognitive search and related platforms, which we can talk about more later. The final point, really, and then Phil, I'll toss it back to you, is that we want to strike the right balance here. We want to be prepared to leverage AI. We want to leverage it to its fullest potential. We want people to be excited about it. So yes, embrace AI, start ideating, start creating proof of concepts and choosing winning product ideas for your organization. But don't forget the essential elements that make it all work. Build a solid data foundation, ensure security and compliance measures are built in from the beginning, lay down a scalable infrastructure, adopt a modern data stack, deliver maintainable data products, and keep trust and transparency, responsible AI principles as part of the process.
Yeah, Jeff, and before I go on to the responsible AI stuff we'll talk about in just a second here, I think the data piece is something that's really often overlooked. We're starting to use internally the idea of data curation, right? Because we have this data sprawl across the organization, and much of the data historically has been trapped data, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but garbage in, garbage out kind of thing, right? So really understanding and kind of cleaning house before you embark, or as part of the journey that you're going to take with this, is going to be crucial. So thanks for that. Responsible AI, this is part of every project that we're engaged with. We discuss it from an internal governance standpoint. And it's something that we, view the field of AI through. These are the 6 pillars that we leverage. There are variations of this for sure, but in general, we believe that the AI systems and models should be fair. They should treat all people fairly, regardless of background or demographics. The system should perform reliably and safely. AI being used in automobiles, right? Self-driving cars is a perfect example of that, right? The last thing you want is a model that's not going to keep the passenger or pedestrian safe. AI systems should also empower and engage with everybody, right? It shouldn't just be for a select group of individuals, but for people across an organization or across a particular a country or society as a whole. Privacy and security, I know Jeff said on this one, this was incredibly important. People are always concerned about where and how their data is being shared. Keeping those at the forefront as you're building your models and making sure that you're respecting an individual's privacy is key. Accountability. As we're developing these systems, we're all accountable for the results that they're producing. So knowing that up front and holding the people accountable who are building those systems are incredibly important. And then transparency is the other one. That one's huge right now. Understanding how the models work is important. I think historically, AI systems and neural networks in particular have been viewed as this black box. We as an industry need to do a better job of having explainable AI so that we can go back and kind of see how these systems are performing and what they're doing exactly. And there'll be a lot more that comes out of this, as I mentioned, the hearings that are going on, and this will be a hot topic definitely for the foreseeable future. We'll go into some of the business cases and use cases, kind of where we're seeing opportunities for this now. Hopefully, giving you some ideas and where you can start thinking about implementing or at least doing a proof of concept or prototypes around the technology as well. I like this graphic. It's kind of like the dot-com areas. Anyone can slap a .ai on the URL now, and they're an AI company. Budgets don't get approved this way, though. We all know that. We know the realities of it. But unlike buying a yacht, I think it no longer takes millions of dollars to get started in this space. There are ways, and we have a blueprint, a process by which we can help organizations kind of get going with this technology. It includes, helping them define use cases, building specific product requirements or feature requirements for what we're trying to build, identifying what the target architecture is going to look like that meets the needs of providing valid and trustworthy information, having secure data, and being extensible as well. And then, we work with organizations who are trying to accelerate some of this too, so we can, help them with building an MVP. Typically, we can do it in 12 weeks, but our goal in this is really because the market is changing so quickly that you as an organization have to think about these projects a little bit differently as well. It's an ongoing, iterative approach. And I would also say that it's not a one-off project, right? So we're working with organizations now that are trying to build out real centers of excellence around this. And we're helping them provide the ongoing, okay, what's happening in the field and what are the new tools and things that we need to be looking out for on the horizon as well. So in terms of the use cases, I'll go through this quickly. I know that Alex, I'm sure, is chomping at the bit here. Smart search, hands down, the most popular use case right now. As I mentioned earlier, I think depending on the study you look at, almost 80% in some cases of data in an organization is considered trapped data, meaning that I don't know what we have. I'm trying to, if I'm in a university, I'm trying to do research. I want to build on some research that's already been done versus trying to do something new. I don't necessarily know where that is. So smart search technology is leveraging OpenAI all day long, and it's a great use case for organizations to get started with because it unlocks so much value to the decision-making process. Employee and client engagement, we talk about bots. We've known bots have been around for a while. Historically, those have had to be almost hard-coded. You have to kind of build a decision tree and logic map in order to do that. Using natural language interfaces now, we kind of marry those two technologies. It allows us to have a more natural engagement with HR or with employees. I can have an HR bot. I can have a customer service bot for customers as well. So there's ways to do that. Analysis and summarization, great use case. You can throw data at it from an Excel spreadsheet, have it take a look at it. You can query against it. It'll give you insights on the data back. We built an internal product called Meeting Miner that allows us to analyze meetings, gives us summaries, to-dos that kind of flow out of it as well, so automates that whole process as well. Coding, we've all heard, I think, about some of the coding pieces of this, either writing raw code or even converting from one language to another as well. And there are tons of use cases that are around that. But Jeff, maybe talk about a couple vertical specific use cases that you've seen.
Sure. Yeah. And there's some, real pros and cons to some of them. In fact, funny enough, I was having lunch yesterday with a nationally recognized patent attorney, and he has expertise in intellectual property rights, and we were talking about AI as it relates to IP and ownership and things like that. But he mentioned, for example, the patent office is now using these large language models to query sort of existing patent applications, and but that's great for getting a patent. Is this already a patent? Answer back quick. But what if you're, a foreign government looking to see all the new patent filings in a much more streamlined way without having to read through hundreds of pages of new patent filings every day? There's pros and cons to all of these. But yeah, to your question, marketing industry, super quick example, right? Content creation, audience research, personalization. I think we've all heard some use cases, and I know Khan Academy has been talking about some in education. Whether it's customized or curated learning paths, even research assistance, as it might relate to the education vertical. Clearly, healthcare. It could be summarization of outcomes. It could be tonal or language changes, right? Doctors aren't always known for having the best delivery mechanism of patient, feedback. So potentially there. Natural language driven insights into research, large data set analysis, right? There's a lot of opportunity there. Customer service, you touched on this with bots, but even multilingual assistance, personalized responses, sentiment analysis, I think is a good one. In fact, we did a project, I think it was 2 years ago, where we were helping a large organization, I think 30 offices up and down the Atlantic seaboard, basically do customer sentiment analysis, as well as a bunch of other data points to understand success or failure predictability within a project, project engagement. In HR, I think you touched on HR, right? Could be creating interview questions, onboarding materials, job descriptions, whatever it might be, or even manufacturing or industrial, right? Summarizing information from long manuals or documents, streamlining training, maybe things around correlation of variable sourced ingress data. There's a lot of opportunity, I think, in it. So anyway, there's just a couple off the top of my head, but I know, as you said, Alex is probably excited to give his demo.
For sure. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. The point of this little cartoon here is that put the whether it's OpenAI directly and just using the free version of it, everyone is going to have a little bit different take on it. And I can tell you that for the projects that we've worked on, every time we kind of show what's possible, there are 3 or 4 variations or ideas that are sparked and stem from that. So start somewhere, get it in the hands of the users, and I guarantee you're going to see some tremendous success in terms of identifying other use cases as well. So with that, Alex, I think I will turn it over to you.
All righty. We get my screen shared out here, so we're going to do some prompt engineering.
Alex, as you're doing that, I know that prompt engineering is both art and science, right? To some extent.
Yep. The way I always describe it is everybody's worked with that one person who will do exactly what you ask and no more. So you got to come up with the perfect way of telling them what you want. Sometimes that involves being more detailed. Sometimes it's more simple, but they always have more information that they're not going to give you unless you ask for it.
Fair.
Alrighty. So we'll start off with something simple. Big thing we have internally is our sales guys ask the engineers a lot of questions about leads we get to get some more, technical sounding questions and that kind of stuff to get more information. That eats up a lot of engineering time and everything. So something you can do with AI is say, let me grab the prompt here. I have it on another screen. You could build essentially a chat bot and tell it to answer the questions for them, and then just have the sales guys feed the data in directly. So, and then here's just a quick example, and just have that generate the questions for you. Super simple thing, but it actually saves a surprising amount of time. And then all I do in here is tell it how it's acting, what it's going to do, that kind of thing, and then give it the info it needs. So now we've got all these questions, and if we want, we could have it say, write an email to send a prospect. Give it a specific tone. I like to, write my emails in a more casual tone. It's business, but keep it professional, but not like you're talking to a robot, essentially.
And Alex, while this is generating, this would be an example of sort of the general public consumer sort of flavor of ChatGPT. When we implement this in organizations so that they can leverage the insights that exist, as Phil said, the unlockable sort of insights that exist within their organization, these prompt responses would actually be pulling from existing documentation, knowledge bases that are relevant within an organization, and be locked to the security model of the user making the request. So somebody on the leadership team might get sources that they have access to, whereas somebody on the engineering team or the HR department might get something that is more limited to their scope of access. Is that right?
Correct. And then I'll have an example of that actually later where we can see what it's like doing something with the ChatGPT interface, like you see now, the OpenAI chat, versus a solution we actually built for someone that pulls from their data and just uses ChatGPT as kind of the front end. So as you can see, it took all that, fleshed out the questions a little more, and then added some, nicer tone, less than just a list of things and more like you're talking to a person.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then let's see here. So with that idea, what I did last night while I was just sitting down watching TV was I took that and said, hey, what if I build, a nice front end instead of having to show our guys how to use the chat window, we can actually build them an app and then later tie that into our systems and everything to pull that data automatically and kind of eventually do a more seamlessly integrated solution for this. But to start out, I just wanted a quick, application that can take the data, spit out the questions, do it how I want. So I gave it a prompt telling what it's going to do here. It's principal engineer, gave it a little bit of background on what I want and then how it's going to work, had it build out the specifications for how it should work, and then told it to write the front end and back end. And then as a quick demo, and once again, this took like 2 hours while I was sitting on the couch, I have minimum viable product here to try out. So same prompt as before. Company industry is construction. We'll say they have like 30 people, director of information technology, and description of what they want. And then this, instead of going through the chat window like this, like I said, actually has a backend that was built for this and queries against the ChatGPT models directly. So just hit generate, give it a couple seconds here, and
Alex,
should have some questions.
And then this would be a tool for a salesperson at an organization potentially to use to help generate the next best questions to ask a prospect, somebody that submitted a lead request. That's what this is.
Correct. And then this is just, like I said, took 2 hours to build. Later down the line, after we figure out that this works well, we could go even further with this and implement it into our sales lead systems and have it auto-generate questions based on the leads coming in.
So, for example, if somebody used, Microsoft CRM or HubSpot or something like that, systems that support webhooks and API integrations, this could be an automated part of the process that then feeds the information to the salesperson without them asking for it.
Yep. Or if you want to take it a step further than this is just built for sales. You could set up a Azure cognitive search that you have a call center. It queries your knowledge base and then surfaces answers for the technicians based on the call and their questions and everything. There's a lot of different ways you can do with it. This is just one kind of implementation of it. But yeah, see, now we got a bunch of questions. Oh, go ahead.
Now, Alex, I'm sure a question that folks are going to have is, you had it write the actual code for you. how good was the code originally, and how much manipulation did you have to do with it?
That is a good question. So on the technical side of this, the front end, as you guys can see at the top, it's a React front end. I've never written React before, or a lot of this kind of stuff. And then the back end's Python, which I'm a little more familiar with. It took about 2 hours of back and forth of getting it how I wanted. And let me scroll through in the chat here. Some bug fixing. I actually asked it for some suggestions to improve it. Asked to add air handling and all that. I told it to implement that, rewrote it with a bunch of things, and then just kind of back and forth, ran in some errors, told it the errors, and it fixed it. So it's not perfect right off the bat. But the fun thing was, and I'll show this here in a second, after I did this one, I got a little more familiar with basically the two technologies I was using it to generate the React front end and the Python back end. I built another tool, and that took all of about 10 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I spent probably 15 more minutes making it look a little prettier, but it was up and functional within 5 to 10 minutes.
So I hear a bunch of developers out there either applauding or cringing. I'm not sure what we're calling that. All right.
Now there's, once again, very, very simple product right now. It doesn't have a lot of air handling, edge cases, security, that kind of stuff. But just to be like, okay, will this work at my company? It's really quick to implement and just build kind of a proof of concept there and be like, hey, this works, and then refine it down and start adding integrations and everything.
Awesome.
As I always say, it's not a replacement, it's an accelerator.
Excellent. It's a great way to characterize it.
All right. And then let me pull up another one here. So the other tool I built was a data analyzer. This isn't the data analyzer. This was me coming up with sample data, which is also a great use case. You need a bunch of boilerplate stuff. Just ask ChatGPT for it. So this is essentially just like sales data from a company. I just asked it come up with some sample data I can put through the Excel data analyzer. And then I'll paste it in this one over here. Get rid of that half-finished one, and we'll have it analyze. And while this is going on, let me do the same thing in a ChatGPT window.
Well, Alex, while you're doing that, I'll call out to the folks that are listening. If you do have questions that you're going to want to ask, feel free. Please put them in the Q&A window, and we'll get to them after the demos.
Cool. All right. So this gave some quick insights, just the product categories, what products are popular, sales volume, yada, yada, yada. A very quick thing here. So let me see if I can ask it. What's the...
While you're doing that, Alex, I'll remind everybody too that if you have questions, put them in the Q&A. If you have questions after that you'd like to talk one-on-one about, we'll have a means for you to obviously do that. And we will be posting this webinar, the recording, online for anybody who wants to, consume it again or share it with anybody else that might be relevant. So we'll be doing that after.
And then, so you can ask it more questions and everything. It'll query the data. This once again is the ChatGPT front end, and it gets you kind of some results. You could also ask it if you wanted for it to show its work, and it usually will show its work, so you can double check and not just blindly trust it. On the more app generation side, here is the same thing, just with basically built into a program with some preset responses. So the backend tells it basically analyze it, pull out the categories, what is the highest net profit, and then what are the top selling products by volume, and voila. If you want to take it further, you could also have it, have a little chat window here or something, and you can ask it active questions and everything. Instead of having to copy and paste everything in, link it back into, say your database, that kind of thing. There's a lot of things you can do with it, and a lot further you can take it as well. But for just, super simple stuff, it's a website. Alex, just throw it in.
I'd also point out too is that I think in the ChatGPT window you can also actually just import a file, right? I see you can bring it in there as well.
That is, I believe, in private preview right now. There are some plugins that can also do it.
Yeah.
So the technology does exist. There's just some limitations around it with the ChatGPT Direct.
Yeah, and I think anybody who's sort of watching, whether it was the code generation that Alex demoed, or the ability to get insights out of data, or ask natural language questions that might help a sales team, or even things around potentially marketing content generation, whatever it might be. These are all things that don't, on the face of it, replace anybody's job. They help people do things more efficiently, and allow them to spend their time on things that are potentially more value generating by moving some of the repeatable actions or things that could be streamlined, into a system that can do that. So I think that those are great examples. And I know, Alex, I think one of the other demos you mentioned you were going to be doing is one where we actually built a demo for a POC for a customer that actually pulls from their own curated knowledge base that is within their organizational walls, rather than something that is, sort of just, whatever the LLM was built to see in 2022 or whatever it was.
Correct. So that's my next one I was going to pull up here. So at, what we built at the University of Rhode Island is a tool that basically, if you've ever gone to a university's website, every department has their own subsite. They've got a bunch of data all over the place. It's super confusing to figure out what you need, where to look for it, and hope you find the right data that's probably in a PDF somewhere. We built a tool that basically uses ChatGPT as the front end for the conversational pieces, but it doesn't actually pull data from ChatGPT. It just uses it for analyzing the data that a Azure Cognitive Search pulls from URI's actual document repo. So I'm going to show you guys me asking questions to ChatGPT and then our tool, and show you the difference in the results we get. So
And while you're doing that, to tie it back to the responsible AI, trust and transparency initiatives that Phil mentioned being so important, we actually, in the responses from the tool that Alex is going to show, the one in the other tab, that one actually sources each of the responses, so a user could feel confident in finding the actual source of truth of a given response to a prompt, rather than just blindly trusting the hallucination or truthiness, as I said earlier, of a potential response.
Truthiness, I love that.
I can't take credit for that. It was Stephen Colbert.
And while this generates, as I always like to say, I'm an IT guy, so I don't word gooder, as you guys could probably see from me mistyping half the things. So I do like to use this to rewrite most of my emails. All right, so it did surface some stuff. Of course, you then have to go back, find all the course information, and hope it's up to date and everything. Universities change courses not too frequently, but it happens, especially in machine learning, AI, more cutting edge stuff. So that's what we got back from ChatGPT, and let's see what we get from our chatbot. So same question, and we'll give it a minute to generate. So I might need to refresh an old session.
Yeah, while you're refreshing it, and the Azure App Service instance is loading, quick comment on this too, which is, one thing that's really interesting about the university space, just sort of as a sort of side comment, is statistics show that of all students that enroll in a 4-year college or university, 25% of them will attrit out, will not stay for the full term. And there are a lot of reasons for that, right? It might be that they can't find the resources they're looking for within the university. It might be that they just don't know, they don't know who to talk to for certain things. So that was one of the tenets that we sort of went into this with, is if we can surface these resources, at the time and place and choosing of the student, rather than them having to schedule an appointment with somebody, potentially that impacts positively the retention rate, which is good. So that was just a quick background, and looks like some data is back now.
All right, so it gave us a few course suggestions. I know this one was on the other one, actually, I believe. Cool. So it got one of the same ones, but there's a couple other course numbers and everything in here. And most importantly, it also lets us go back and look at the actual documentation on their website. So, you can go there, get more info, and not just have to, believe it's right.
also the big difference there is that we don't know if the Chat GPT responses were manufactured or not. We don't know if those are actually real classes or if ChatGPT just said, yeah, this one sounds like a good one. I know there was in the news a few weeks ago an attorney who used it to create legal briefs and got in some trouble because the legal briefs were manufactured, which is not a good thing. So this tries to get around that by sourcing, as Alex said, from a cognitive search index that we built based on actual sourceable primary source of truth sort of data that's available from the university in this case.
Correct. In this instance, ChatGPT is not actually making any of the info. It's looking at other info, summarizing it, kind of doing some analysis based on your response, and then using ChatGPT as just the conversational piece. It doesn't actually do any of the information invention or finding in some regards.
And I think one of the other things that we're not getting into, because it's a whole different conversation in terms of the ongoing training, right? You can do some prompt engineering to refine how the results come back. You can do some fine tuning if you wanted to go down that route. So there are ways to even make this more succinct or more elaborate. You can, make it come out with a different tone or however you want to do that. So there's lots of ways to kind of enhance the model as part of this. But I think the important piece is that this is based off real data from the university.
Correct. And then kind of building off that, this tool wasn't even necessarily built for what I kind of use it as, which was new students looking at it. It was meant for, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Phil, existing students finding information across the university for research projects was the original goal, but ended up being able to do a lot more than that just because it's connecting back to all these pieces and it's essentially just a chatbot on the front end to help you look at URI's information.
Yep, exactly right. Exactly. Awesome. Alex, that was great. Great. I appreciate you going through those. I'm going to just kind of wrap things up here and then give us some time to answer some questions. So, Lauren, I think you have some questions ready as well, and we'll grab some other ones here too. But while we're doing that, yes. For those who want to find out, I know we went through a lot of information. There's a lot here. There's a lot more to this as well. How do you stay up to date what's going on? Follow us on LinkedIn. We are posting stuff all the time. We're trying to get as much information as soon as we learn it out there as possible. We have a resource guide that'll be available after this as well. If you request that at the website listed below, you can log in there. Go to the website, fill out a form, and we'll get you. It'll contain a bunch of these slides as well as a bunch of other slides that we didn't go through, which you'll find, I'm sure, extremely useful. We have workshops, both from an ideation standpoint as well as doing briefings and identifying the initial use cases with you. You can engage with us that way. And then again, helping you identify what that roadmap looks like longer term. Either building out a center of excellence or focusing on a specific project, we can help with that. So with that, I'll leave this up. But Lauren, do you want to maybe go through some of the questions we've seen so far?
Yeah, thank you, Phil. We've had some questions coming in as we've been talking through today, and feel free to submit some more if new questions have come up. But the first is, I've been playing with ChatGPT and DALL-E casually. How do I take an idea that works on my laptop and make it something I can put into the world at scale?
I'll take that one. And Phil, actually, I think in the addendum, I might have a slide that actually talks about some of the architectural elements, not to be overly technical, but it might help with the explanation. But yeah, if there's something that someone's playing with, on their laptop, I'll use Alex as an example. Right, he was sitting on the couch watching, something on TV last night, and he asked ChatGPT to help build some code, and he had some, prompts that he wanted the responses to sort of model out, and a few other things. That's great on his laptop. It's great for a quick demo. It looked like he was referencing a local instance of something on his machine for that demo. But that's a much different thing than scaling up to an enterprise grade delivery. So, in the examples that we, usually work with customers around, there's elements of sort of Azure App Services, potentially bot services. You can see in this example the cognitive search, which Alex mentioned in his example. And by the way, cognitive search is just one of the tools within the Azure Cognitive Services stack we've done work with customers on computer vision models to analyze images. There's document analysis, forms recognizer. There's a whole bunch of other things, translation in real time, video analysis. So those are building blocks, and those paired with a front end that might be delivered through an Azure App Service or something similar to that. There's other ways to do that. Can allow something that works on a laptop to be scaled up in an as-a-service way, not a bunch of virtual machines that have to be maintained, but in an as-a-service way using these some of these components. Phil, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, or if there was another question, Lauren.
Yeah, so another question came in saying, you showed a slide that talks about OpenAI versus Azure OpenAI, and it looks like the Microsoft approach takes what OpenAI developed and wraps additional security around it. Are there any core features that are not available in the Microsoft version?
Yeah, I'm going to pull it up, but one of the ones I know for sure I've been asked about recently is Whisper, which is the translation, the speech to text and translation service. That being said, I mentioned the Meeting Miner platform that we've had before. That is something that you can build fairly in a straightforward way with it. But Whisper is inherently not in it. But you can get, I think Dolly's in there as well, and Codex is in there too.
Right, and Azure has text-to-speech services and some other things that are sort of adjacent to it. So all of which is exposed via APIs. And anybody who's got their hand up, feel free to post the question in the Q&A. I know it looks like, Dave, you might have a question. Feel free to post it in the Q&A, or we can reach out afterwards and talk one-on-one. Totally fine. Yeah, pretty much everything that's in the OpenAI stuff will either immediately or very shortly sort of trickle into the Azure delivered model, with a lot more wrapped around it, around security, governance, compliance, and sort of the cloud native at scale enterprise sort of delivery model. Anyone who's played with ChatGPT recently knows that there's some let's say availability issues at times as the service scales. But the OpenAI on Azure service has, from our experience, been rock solid for enterprise deployments over the last couple months that we've been doing it. As Phil mentioned at the beginning, we've been working with the Azure OpenAI stack for close to a year. The first 6 months of that was in beta or closed beta. I believe it was embargoed. People couldn't really talk about it. And then sort of the world got its taste of ChatGPT. I think it was 3.5 or maybe 3.0 in December, January timeframe. So, we would have loved to have talked about it for months, but just, can't breach that embargo. So.
Yeah, Jeff, there's an interesting question that was asked earlier by Igor. He had mentioned that McDonald's has done it already, and it looks like Wendy's is starting to automate their entire restaurants. And we talked about worrying about people having their jobs displaced. So thinking of the use cases globally, what does it mean for available jobs out there, humans being replaced by AI, and then obviously there'll be jobs created as a result of AI. So how do you kind of see that netting out?
I did try to respond in the chat. I was trying to respond while I was talking before, so I probably butchered it a bit. But I think we can all agree that some sectors will be more negatively impacted and some sectors will be more positively impacted. If you're a data scientist or a model builder or understand computer vision and computer language models, or building natural language bot interfaces, I would imagine you probably have a pretty robust career path ahead of you. If you're doing something that is very easily automated or very repeatable, I do think our society needs to sort of reconcile, not to turn this into a political conversation here, but I do think our society definitely needs to reconcile with how do we support members of society that might be negatively impacted by this stuff, or retrain them for roles that might allow them to leverage this better rather than just be replaced by it. So, the question we do get asked, and you touched on this at the beginning, Phil, is OpenAI going to take my job? Is ChatGPT going to take my job? I think for the foreseeable future, we're not at, sort of AGI, right? Artificial general intelligence. We're not there. So I think the answer I like to give people is ChatGPT probably won't take your job, but somebody who knows how to use it to make your job more efficient, or give better results or better output or more sanitized responses that are maybe more professional, that might be something you need to worry about. So take the time to learn it now, and organizations should embrace it, in my opinion, and figure out how it can positively impact their organization. There's so much meaningful insights, and it really can take businesses to new heights in that regard.
And my favorite example in this arena is, we work in IT. IT has been trying to automate itself out of a job since the industry was founded. 90s, one guy would manage 10 servers, 2000s, you have like 100, so on and so on. Nowadays, one guy can run 200,000 servers by himself. Caveats around that, but yet we still have more and more and more jobs. The jobs change, but the industry keeps expanding because the automation put in place allows one person to do more work, building the industry up further.
Great. Well, thank you, Phil, Jeff, and Alex, for sharing all of this and the live demo and all of your insight and expertise. And thank you for our attendees today for taking the time to join. Hopefully what we've presented here helps you stay ahead of the curve and you gain some insights out of this. If you have some further questions that you didn't get to ask, please reach out. And for Infused Innovation Services, as Phil had mentioned, you can follow us on LinkedIn. We will also have some materials available and send out to you after this webinar.
Excellent. And thank you, Lauren, for joining us as well. And thanks to the team. It was a great conversation. And I look forward to ongoing conversations because this, as we talked about earlier, it's changing on a daily basis. So I'm sure there'll be many more.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.